Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining the NCAA Initial Eligibility webinar. My name is Amber Viles. I am the Assistant Director of Communications, and today I'm joined by my colleagues Ivory Long and Jansen Raymond. We also have a special guest. NCAA President Charlie Baker will be stopping by to give you a brief message. But before we get started, I have just a few quick housekeeping things to note. First, yes, of course, this webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to everyone who registered. So if you happen to get here without registering, I'll put the link to register in the chat. Just make sure you register by the end of the day today, and then tomorrow you will receive that email with a link to the recording and a PDF of all the slides so you can go through and click the links. So while there is a lot of information we're going to cover today, you will be able to go back, watch at your own pace, click the links, enjoy the presentation on your own time. Of course, as noted on the previous slide, you can hear us and hopefully you're able to see us, but we can't hear or see you. So please use the Q&A function to ask us any questions. We do have staff standing by. So even if I can't answer your question live on air, we do have staff that can answer you directly via chat. Now, before I run through our agenda today, we are so excited to welcome NCAA President Charlie Baker to speak with you. Charlie?
Hey everybody, I'm Charlie Baker, President of the NCAA. We're glad you're here to learn more about NCAA Initial Eligibility. While at times a bit intimidating, deciding where you'll go to college is one of the most exciting decisions of your life. It's important to find a school that will encourage you to grow academically and athletically. Now, with over 1,000 NCAA schools, we have a lot to choose from. I believe college sports are the most important human potential development program our nation has. Competing on the basketball team was one of the best parts about my Harvard experience, but this wouldn't have been possible without the time I dedicated to my education before and during my time as a student athlete. There's a reason the word student comes first. Academic achievement creates opportunities and opens doors that athletic ability alone can't. At the NCAA National Office, staff members want to ensure you meet standards that will best prepare you to succeed in college. Initial eligibility determines your ability to receive an athletic scholarship and to practice and compete in your first year as a full-time college student. This webinar will provide all the information you need to ensure you're eligible to compete as an NCAA student athlete. We're committed to supporting students across all 3 divisions on their road to success. Enjoy your journey and the very best of luck to you.
Thank you, Charlie. And as you see here on today's agenda, Ivory will discuss what the NCAA Eligibility Center is and certification outcomes. So if you're a senior student athlete, just pay really close attention when you hear Ivory mention the certification outcomes for Division 1 and 2. Then Jansen will talk about recruiting, and I'll finish us off with some resources and, of course, take your questions live. Now I'm going to hand things over to Ivory Long, the Assistant Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thank you all for spending your evening with us. Here at the NCAA, we are comprised of 3 divisions, Divisions 1, 2, and 3, and this slide just shows you the breakdown of each division. There are multiple opportunities at each division for student athletes. So student athletes, meet with your support system, your coaches, your family, athletic director, anybody that you know that has played at the NCAA level. Meet with them and discuss what level of competition you should aim for. We want to make sure that the school that you attend and compete for is the right fit for you. So just make sure that you do your research. And we have a lot of information on our website. And this slide also breaks down each division and what they offer. At the NCAA, we have over 90 national championships. Almost 54,000 student athletes participate in NCAA championships each year. This slide shows the breakdown of each sport that we offer, along with emerging sports. Emerging sports, if you are a student athlete who plays a sport in that column, just make sure that you register with the NCAA Eligibility Center and meet the same standards as all other students. This is a great resource. It's our interactive map. And when you get a copy of this PowerPoint slide, all of the clicks will be, all the links will be clickable and will give you access to those resources. But if you are interested in a school, or if a school reaches out to you and you have no idea where that school is, this resource will help you be able to find out exactly where that college or university is. This resource will show you where every NCAA Divisions 1, 2, and 3 schools are located. Now, one of the main parts of this process is choosing a school. And again, we want to make sure that you are choosing the right school and right program for you. And so this slide breaks down and gives some suggestions on what to look for when you are researching your schools. Student athletes, this is your journey. And so we want you to be a part of it. And you can find all of this information by just simply going onto that school's website and looking for the information. So looking at school size, if you know that you perform better and in a smaller classroom setting, going to a larger university that has 300 to 400 students in a lecture hall may not be the right fit for you. Looking at school location, again, that map that we just showed, those are resources that can help you choose the right school for you. If you want your family, your friends to come see you compete often and come visit you, going to a school across the country may not be the right fit. Also look at if that school has your major or minor. If you know what degree you want to pursue, looking at that, because not only are you there to compete in your sport, you're also there to get an education and get a degree. And so making sure that that college or university offers that major or minor that you want to pursue is very important. You can also look at cost of attendance, admission requirements. All of these answers to these questions are on the NCAA schools website. So go ahead and do your research and take a look. The NCAA Eligibility Center, we are like the front door to the NCAA, welcoming college-bound student athletes. And we support high school counselors, coaches, student athletes, and families to understand how the NCAA initial eligibility process works and how it can be a smooth and easy process for you. We are a unit within the NCAA. We are located in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we provide certification for college-bound student athletes. We do academic and amateurism reviews, and we do these reviews to create a fair and equitable competition across all NCAA divisions. Now, there are 3 requirements for student athletes to meet in order to compete at an NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 school. And all of these requirements has its own subset of requirements. So it could get confusing and may get overwhelming, but hopefully after this webinar, it's easier to understand the process as you navigate it on your own and with your support system. We just want to make sure that you have all the tools and information needed in order to do that successfully. So the first requirement is that the student athlete has to graduate high school. So every high school has its own graduation requirements. If you are unsure of what those are, meet with your school counselor to see that, and also making sure that you're communicating with your school counselor. A lot of times, student athletes, when they think about sports, they'll go and talk to the athletic director, they'll go talk to their coach, and they are great resources as well. But when it comes to academics, making sure that you're checking in with your school counselor. So if you don't know who that is, make sure you go to school, figure out who that is, and then communicate with them that you want to play at the NCAA level, because they're going to help you make sure that you are on track to meeting the NCAA Eligibility Center requirements along with other requirements in order to compete at the next level. The second requirement is that the student athlete has to meet NCAA initial eligibility requirements, which we will break down in this presentation, and then apply and be admitted into that college or university that you are wanting to compete for. Now, oftentimes when student athletes get offered athletic scholarship, they think that that's all they need in order to compete. And we wish it were that easy, but there are a few other steps that you need to take before you can compete. And one of those is applying and being admitted into that college or university. One of the questions that we get often is, does my student athlete need to take the SAT or ACT? Do they need to submit those scores to the NCAA to be eligible? Prior to January of 2023, the answer was yes. But as of 2023 in January, the NCAA is not requiring student athletes to submit SAT or ACT scores to be eligible. However, we still encourage student athletes to take those tests or exams because the college or university that your student athlete may want to go to and compete for admission purposes, that college or university may require those. So that's another reason why it's important when you're doing your research, looking at the admission requirements for all the schools you're interested in and or getting recruited by. This slide shows a breakdown of scholarships and what scholarships offer. So only about 2% of high school student athletes are awarded athletics scholarships to compete in college. And so one thing that I like to tell student athletes, we all heard the phrase, you are a student first, athlete second. And the main piece that I want to bring out of that is that student athletes, the same intensity and dedication that you put into your sport, making sure that we're putting that into the classroom as well. Your academics matter, and coaches do look at how student athletes are performing in the classroom. So this slide just gives a breakdown of what scholarships may offer at the Division I and the Division II level. Understanding what is covered by the scholarships and costs that you may be responsible for. These are questions that you want to ask the coach when you are sitting down. If they're offering you an athletic scholarship, asking them, is it going to be a full athletic scholarship or a partial? If it is going to be a partial, what's that percentage? So then you know as a family what the responsibility from a financial standpoint that you would be responsible for. So just making sure that student athletes understand there are lots of scholarship opportunities out there. Go to your school counselor. Your school may offer scholarships that you can apply for to assist with financial, any type of financial responsibilities or any type of costs that were not covered by the athletic scholarship. So go ahead and check in with your school counselor for all of those opportunities. Student athletes thinking of going pro. Of the student athletes participating in college sports, there's a small percentage that do go professional. Less than 2% of college athletes become professional athletes. And so we just want student athletes to know if you have the dream of going pro, go pursue that dream. But we also want you to make sure when you're in college, focusing on not only your athletics, but also your academics and getting that degree and setting yourself up for life after athletics. At some point, athletics does end. So whether that's after college, whether it's after a professional career, we want to make sure that you have a plan that's setting you up for life after athletics. This is a great visual for student athletes and families to use. This is a visual that shows the process of the NCAA initial eligibility and what that entails. So we'll go through these throughout the presentation, but from registering, finding what and knowing what courses to take, checking in with your school counselor, having your school counselor upload your high school transcripts, meeting with college coaches, going through the recruiting process. All of these things are very important and we'll break them down throughout the presentation. But again, once you get a copy of this slide deck, all of these links are clickable and you will be able to have access to these resources. I know that this has been a lot of information. So remember, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat and we have staff standing by to answer those questions for you. Now, the first requirement with the NCAA Eligibility Center is that student athletes have to register. This is our landing page, eligibilitycenter.org, and this is where student athletes will go to either register or to access and log in their account. There are other things that student athletes can do, and one of them is access their high school's core course list. At the top right-hand corner where you see high school administrators. I know that's a little confusing because you think it's just for your high school administrators, but if you click that link, you can type in your school and you can have access to the approved core course list for your high school. And we'll go into more detail about that in a few minutes. But we suggest student athletes register with the NCAA Eligibility Center as early as 7th or 8th grade. And I know that seems early, but the earlier student athletes and their families know that about this process and that there's something that they need to do once they get to high school, the easier and smoother the process can be. Now, if you are a student athlete that is already in high school, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and you haven't registered, it's not too late. You can still register. We're going to go through the 3 types of profile pages and certifications that we have. The first type is our free profile page account. Now, this is where we would like student athletes to start. So whether you're in 7th or 8th grade, or whether you're in high school and maybe you don't know what division you want to aim for, or maybe you are still questioning if you want to play at the next level, this is a perfect place to start. It gives you your NCAA ID number, which is a unique 10-digit number for every single student athlete. This is the number that you will share with college coaches when you are meeting with them. So again, this is a perfect place to start, and you can transition your account to a certification account at any time. Our second account type is our academic and amateurism certification account. This is the account type student athletes will need if they want to go and compete at a Division I or Division II NCAA school. So in order for a student athlete to go on a Division I official visit, this is the account type they will need to register for. If a student athlete wants to sign for an athletics aid or receive athletic scholarship for Division I or Division II NCAA school, this is the account type you will need to register for. Now, there is a one-time $100 fee for domestic student athletes and a one-time $160 fee for international student athletes, but we do offer a fee waiver. There's a list of criteria. When you are finished filling out all the information that it's required, at the end, it's either going to prompt you to pay with a credit card, or you can click that fee waiver box. But before you click that fee waiver box, check the criteria. If you meet one of the criteria, check that, and then you're going to meet with your school counselor, communicate that you did register with the NCAA Eligibility Center with the certification account, and you believe you are eligible for that fee waiver. Your school counselor will then go in, they will approve it if you are eligible, and then we will waive it on our fee. So another reason why it's important to know who your school counselor is and to continue to check in and communicate with them. Our last account type is the amateurism only certification account. Now, this is for any student athlete who is international and they want to go Division III. And so what we look for when we talk about international is any student athlete who has competed internationally, or if a student athlete has completed any high school internationally and transferred to a domestic high school, and then you want to go and participate or compete at a Division III school, this is the account type you will need to have. Domestic student athletes. So if you are a student athlete who has completed all competition in all high school within the United States and you want to go Division III, you do not have to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. We still encourage you to register with that free profile page account. But again, with that free profile page account, when you're actively getting recruited by a Division I, Division II school, then you can go ahead and transition that account by logging into your account. Core courses. So we are going to talk about core courses, what they are, and some of the requirements from an academic standpoint that student athletes must meet in order to be eligible to compete. Now, this is where the difference comes in that I was speaking about at the beginning. So your high school graduation requirements require you to meet a certain amount of credits, and those credits are a combination of core courses and elective courses. When you are applying to these colleges or universities, you're going to have to submit your transcript, and they're going to look at your GPA. That is your overall GPA, which is, again, a combination of elective and core courses. At the NCAA Eligibility Center, we are only looking at student athletes' core courses. So when we get those transcripts, we're only looking at their GPA, in those core courses. So English, math at the Algebra 1 level or higher, social studies, science, world language courses. These are all examples of core courses. And another reason why it's very important to check in with your school counselor to make sure that you are taking enough core courses to be eligible. Again, these core courses for your high school that are approved with the NCAA can be found on our website, again, by clicking that high school administrators link and then typing in your high school. What is a core course? So these are courses that are submitted by your high school that meet certain criteria. And according to our policies and procedures, and they have to be completed in alignment with your high school's policies. And so again, those examples would be English courses, math courses, social studies, science, world language courses. And if you have questions about what courses you can take, you can again meet with your school counselors to discuss those options. Dual enrollment coursework. We get this question a lot as well from families. Families say, if my student athlete takes a dual enrollment course, would that satisfy or would that be counted towards their NCAA core course requirement? And it may be used to satisfy that. If it appears on the student athlete's official transcript with grade and credit, and it meets all the requirements of the NCAA core course requirements, then we would be able to use that in your academic certification. So again, if this is an area that you would like to pursue, taking dual credit coursework, making sure that you're meeting with your school counselor to know that you are taking the right courses. If you have your phone, go ahead and take it out and scan this QR code. This is a link to the portal where you can type in your high school and access your high school's approved core course list. We have student athletes who like to look ahead and maybe plan for courses that they want to take next semester or even next year. And so this is a great resource to have and to use as you're doing so. This is a snapshot of what you would see when you go to this link. So once you type in your high school, then it's going to list all the approved core courses, and you can filter it by subject. So if you want to look at it, just instead of looking at the entire core course list in one view, you can filter it to English courses, or if you can filter it just by mathematics, and then it will show you the title. Some of the courses may show how many credits that you can get from taking that course. If it's an education impacting disability course, it will designate that. So if you have a student athlete who has a 504 plan or an IEP, there are certain courses that they can take. And so again, all of these things can be found when you are viewing the core course list for your high school. This is an example schedule. Sometimes when we tell student athletes and families that they have to complete 16 core courses in order to be eligible to play at the next level, their eyes get a little wide. But this is just a simple schedule that will show you the breakdown. So if your student athlete takes at least 4 core courses every year, they'll easily meet that 16. So again, making it a point to check in with the school counselor to make sure the student athlete is on track and taking enough core courses. We have another great resource. It's our Division I and Division II worksheet. And this is a resource where it helps you and your student athlete calculate their core GPA. So I mentioned that the NCAA Eligibility Center, we only look at your student athlete's GPA in their core courses. And so if you're wondering, what is my student athlete's core GPA? This resource is a great one to have. You can insert and type in their core course. So for example, Algebra 1. Type in Algebra 1, what grade they got. If they received an A, you could put an A. If an A is worth 4 points at your school, then they would put in that 4, and it will calculate their core GPA. You can also make sure you include all the other core courses that they have taken so far, just so you can get a sense of where the student athlete stands from a core GPA standpoint. Next, we're going to get into certification outcomes for the Division I and Division II level. These are the academic requirements student athletes will need to meet in order to compete at the next level. And this is really important because, again, as I stated at the beginning, academics is really, really important. We want student athletes to know that the higher your academic performance is, creates a lot more opportunities for you. So making sure, again, that you are trying very, very hard in the classroom and asking for help, whether it's with your teachers, school counselors, anybody that, tutors, making sure that you are getting that help if needed. So from a Division I standpoint, there are 4 different outcomes. And the first one we're going to talk about is the early academic qualifier. So what that means is that the student athlete can practice, they can compete, and they can receive athletic scholarship their first year. Now, there are 2 different requirements that student athletes must meet in order to become a Division I early academic qualifier. And all of these requirements are based on the student athlete's pre-7th semester academic record. So the first requirement is the student athlete must complete 14 NCAA approved core courses and earn a minimum of a 3.0 core GPA. And this is the subject area breakdown. So it breaks down the years or credits of each subject area that the student athlete will need to complete in order to meet the requirements of being an early academic qualifier. So as you can see, a student athlete would need to have completed 3 years of English, 2 years of math at the Algebra 1 level or higher. Now, we do get questions from student athletes and families about high school courses taken in middle school, and do those courses would they count towards their NCAA eligibility? They could. If your high school will put the high school course taken in middle school. So for instance, if your student athlete took Algebra 1 in middle school, if that Algebra 1 course is on the high school's approved core course list, and that high school will put that course on their high school transcript for grade and credit, we will count it towards their NCAA core course requirement. So again, that's another reason why we say the earlier student athletes know, the better, because there are some high schools out there that do not put middle school credits on high school transcripts. So just making sure you're checking in again with your school counselors. The next certification outcome for Division I is our qualifier. So again, the student athlete can practice, compete, and receive athletic scholarship their first year. There are 4 different requirements the student athlete must meet. One is they have to complete 16 core courses, and those 16 core courses have to be taken in their first 8 semesters or 4 years of high school. So when we look at a student athlete's transcript, we are looking at their coursework that is taken in their 8 semesters or 4 years of high school from their initial start of 9th grade. The third requirement is what we call our core course progression, or 10-7 for short. What this means is that 10 of the 16 core courses have to be completed before a student athlete starts their 7th semester. So if you are a traditional 4-year student athlete, before you start your senior year, 10 of the 16 core courses have to be completed. 7 of the 10 have to be in English, math, or science. Now, if you are a junior and say at the end of your junior year, you only have 9 core courses completed, you can take an approved core course in the summer. As long as it's completed before you start that 7th semester, it will count towards that 10. So making sure, again, I'm going to say it again, I know I've said this multiple times already, but making sure as student athletes, you are checking in with your school counselor, because there are a lot of different requirements you need to meet that are different from your high school graduation requirements and are different from the college admission requirements. And we want to make sure that you're covered on all bases. And the last requirement is that the student athlete has to have at least a 2.3 core GPA. And this is the subject area breakdown for Division I qualifier. 4 years of English, 3 years of math at the Algebra 1 level or higher, 2 years of science, that 1 year of extra math, English, or science, 2 years of social science. So social science is any history courses or social studies courses, and then 4 years of an additional course. So those additional courses can include world language courses, if your school offers comparative religion, or if you wanted to take, you're great at math, you wanted to take an extra math course or extra social studies course, that's where the additional courses are comprised of. And again, that 10-7 requirement, we want to make sure student athletes understand. When we talk to school counselors, we suggest that they set student athletes up to be eligible from a Division I standpoint, because if student athletes are eligible from a Division I standpoint, they will be eligible for Divisions 2 and 3. And so again, making sure you're checking in regularly with your school counselor to see if you're on track, not only to meeting those 16 core courses, but also on track to meeting this 10-7. Courses taken after high school. So for Division I only, only core courses completed in the first 8 semesters or 4 years from the initial start of 9th grade will be used in their academic certification. However, if a student athlete graduates on time and say they with their class and they say they graduated with 15 core courses, they have the opportunity to complete an additional core course after graduation of high school before they full-time enroll into an NCAA Division I college or university. Our next certification outcome at the Division I level is the academic red shirt. This is where the student athlete can practice their first term or semester. They can receive athletic scholarship their first year. They just cannot compete their first year. And so notice that when I said practice, it was for the first term or first semester. This is another reason why it's important to focus on your academics as well, because once you leave high school, you still have to meet progress towards degree. You still have to meet certain academic requirements in order to stay eligible at the collegiate level. And so we want to make sure that you understand how well you do first semester determines if you can practice second semester or second term. There are 2 requirements of an academic red shirt. Student athletes still need to complete the 16 core courses and have at least a 2.0 core GPA. And the last outcome for Division I is a non-qualifier. And so that student athlete didn't meet any of the academic requirements to be a Division I qualifier or red shirt. And so this student athlete can't practice, compete, or receive athletic scholarship their first year. But there are other opportunities. And so we encourage student athletes, check with the compliance office at that NCAA school to see what your other options are. Division II certification outcomes, there are 3, and we are going to start with that early academic qualifier. Again, the student athlete can practice, compete, and receive athletic scholarship their first year. And these requirements, again, are based on the student athlete's pre-7 semester academic record. So the student athlete has to meet or complete 14 core courses and then have at least a 2.5 core GPA. And this is the subject area breakdown for the early academic qualifier for Division II. So again, checking in with your school counselor. And just because a student athlete, we get this question a lot, like if my student athlete graduates early, does that mean they have to be an early academic qualifier? Graduating early is not a requirement to meet early academic qualifier status. Division II qualifier. Division II qualifier looks a little different from a Division I. Student athletes still have to meet that 16 core course requirement and have at least a 2.2 core GPA. Notice the 10-7 rule is not a requirement at the Division II qualifier level. So if you're a student athlete and you're getting recruited by Division I and Division II schools, you do have options. And so again, making sure that you're speaking with your support system to discuss what those options are. And this is a subject area breakdown for a Division II qualifier. Notice there are some subtle differences from Division I. So instead of 4 years or credits of English, Division II, you need to have 3 years of English, 2 years of math at the Algebra 1 level or higher, and so on. But we do want to make sure, again, student athletes, make sure that when you're communicating with your school counselor, see if they are keeping you on pace and on track to meet Division I qualifier requirements, because sometimes student athletes, if you are a sophomore or junior and you've just been getting contacts from Division II schools, you might have a breakout junior year or a breakout senior year, and now here comes these Division I schools. And so we want to make sure you're not limited in the recruiting process. So just making sure that you're communicating with your school counselor on a regular basis. The next certification outcome for Division II is our partial qualifier outcome. So this is where the student athlete can practice and receive athletic scholarship their first year. They just cannot compete. And the only requirement of a student athlete is to graduate high school. We also encourage you to check in with the compliance officer at your NCAA school that you are wanting to compete at for more options. Division III. So Division III is unique in its own way. Each Division III college or university determines its own admission requirements. It determines its own financial aid requirements. And so if you are a student athlete who is interested in going Division III, you would work with the compliance office and the coach at that school to help you with admission requirements and to also help you with any type of financial assistance. One thing to note with Division III is that Division III does not offer athletic scholarships. However, student athletes, you still get the opportunity and experience of competing for a conference championship and national championships. There are a lot of opportunities at the Division III level. So making sure that you're talking to the coaches. Jansen later on in the recruiting section is going to give you a few topics that you can discuss with these college coaches as you're going through the recruiting process. So just making sure that you are asking those questions. Education impacting disabilities. So student athletes who have 504 plans or IEPs, there are certain accommodations that are available to you. Now, one thing to note, student athletes with education impacting disabilities, they still need to meet the same requirements and initial eligibility standards as other students. But there are certain NCAA approved core courses for students with education impacting disabilities that may be offered at your school. So again, checking that approved core course list, and in that column that that listed EID, you can see what core courses are offered at your school that has those accommodations. Also, for Division I, student athletes with an education impacting disability, after you graduate high school, you have the opportunity to take up to an additional 3 core courses to meet that 16 core prior to enrolling full-time at that Division I college or university. For Division II, you can take unlimited number of core courses after graduation or after starting 9th grade before enrolling full-time into that Division II college or university. There is a link at the bottom of the slide. So again, once you get this resource, you will be able to click it and access that resource. Reclassifying. There are many questions again on students who want to reclassify. We get a lot of emails, or when we go out to events, parents or guardians, family members will say, should my student athlete reclassify? And so we wanted to share some information before you made that decision. For Division I, only core courses, remember, only core courses that are completed in their first 8 semesters or 4 years will be used in their academic certification. And so we want to make sure that you are understanding that aspect of it. If you do not graduate on time, the coursework completed after the 8 semesters or 4 years will not be used in that certification. So to be a Division I qualifier, again, that 10-7 rule or requirement is there. The student athlete still needs to meet that. So for instance, if a student athlete repeats 9th grade, only coursework in their initial 9th, 10th, that repeated 10th grade year, and 11th year, only coursework in those 4 years or 8 semesters will be used. So anything that's taken after this that year, in the 5th year, we would not use it in their academic certification. And then that 10-7, so the 10 courses completed before that 7th semester still needs to be met. And so again, knowing that these are a factor, we want you to weigh those before you make that decision if you want to reclassify. Delayed enrollment. So delayed enrollment, as you see at the graphic at the top, there are certain delayed enrollment rules or requirements for student athletes. As you can see, there are differences. So men's and women's tennis, men's ice hockey, men's and women's skiing, they have a specific delayed enrollment time period, but all other sports, so swimming, track and field, football, basketball, softball, baseball, after high school graduation, you have a grace period to continue competing in that sport before initially enrolling into an NCAA college or university. So generally, in those all other sports category, you get 12 months or a year to compete. After that grace period, though, you are at risk of losing eligibility at an NCAA school. So again, checking in with the compliance office at your school to see what your options are. There's also a resource linked at the bottom of this slide that will help you in that decision of delayed enrollment. And now we are going to go over to Jansen Raymond, and he's going to walk you through the recruiting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ivory. Next, we're going to be talking about recruiting and what recruiting is going to look like. It's going to look different from everybody. There is no cookie cutter method of what recruiting looks like. These are just examples of what recruiting could look like. You could get calls from coaches. You could get texts and emails. Another indicator is if you are on a school's institution request list. This is a list of college-bound student athletes an NCAA school is recruiting. Again, kids ask all the time, can I reach out to schools? Can I email them? Can I call? Can I text? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But a good thing to remember is that every sport is going to follow a recruiting calendar. And now football is going to look different than basketball. Basketball is going to look different than baseball. And the different divisions are going to look different, right? There's going to be periods where they can contact you. There's going to be periods where they can't contact you, like a dead period. For more information on this, I'm going to have you scan this QR code, and it's going to break down what sport and division you want to play, and it's going to break down your recruiting calendar for you. Another great tip as you're getting recruited are going to be these official and unofficial visits. Now, keep in mind, there are going to be a couple differences between the official visit and unofficial visit. For an official visit, this is a list of what that school is going to be able to pay for while you're visiting that school. The next is going to break down what an unofficial looks like. They're not going to be able to pay for your meals, your lodging. Those are just two things to keep in mind as schools are going to invite you to visit their campuses and ask the questions. Is this going to be an official visit or an unofficial? And just know the differences between the two. Next is the walk-on. There's two types of walk-ons. There's our walk-ons that are recruited out of high school, and there's just not enough scholarship options at that school. So you would still be a part of that team. You would just not receive a scholarship to participate with that team. The second walk-on is one that attends that school without being recruited, and then they can go through a tryout period to walk on to the team. And again, you still would not have that scholarship, but it's just a great way, two different types of ways to continue playing at the next level if you weren't offered a scholarship. As you're on your unofficial and official visits, these are great resources to discuss with the NCAA coaches. I'm not going to go through all of them, but again, you can read these. This would be a great time to take a picture of this screen and write down a couple questions that you might have for them, right? The degree program that you want to pursue, does this school even offer that? Academic resources, injuries, right? What that looks like. What is my playing time expectations coming in? Maybe freshman year, sophomore year. Just great questions to ask. If you want any more tips on other questions that you could ask, you can visit on.ncaa.com/choosing. Here are some recruiting best practices. Again, I would encourage you to keep that phone out and take a picture of this screen. Talk with your support system of what level competition they might think you should aim for, whether that's your coaches, your guardians, your travel coaches. Again, people in your inner circle, asking these questions, making sure that you're registered for an Eligibility Center account before 9th grade. Again, and just making sure, like I've alluded to, you are a student athlete. The student comes first. So making sure that you work as hard in the classroom as you do in your sport. Again, here are some more NCAA recruiting best practices. Again, not going to go over them, but just conducting yourself in a positive manner in the classroom, practicing games at home, in your community, and also very importantly, online. Understand that coaches are always watching, and you never know who might be at a game, who might be at an event. So making sure that you're always conducting yourself in a way that represents your community, your family, and your school in a positive way. Another topic that we're going to cover, but not in too much detail, because this is going to look different for every student athlete in different states, is the name, image, and likeness. Understand that at the collegiate level, you can capitalize off your name, image, and likeness. At the high school level, again, that's going to look different for everybody. My best resource to give you is to contact your state's high school athletic association. You can also visit on.ncaa.com/NIL, or you can even contact your future NCAA school's compliance office and ask all things name, image, and likeness. Your athletic aide. Again, this voluntarily ends your recruiting process. You are going to go to that school for a minimum of 1 academic year. By signing this athletic aid, you are agreeing to attend that Division I or Division II. And please keep in mind, like Ivory stated, you must be admitted to that NCAA school, and you also must be eligible for financial aid under NCAA rules. And transfer students. Again, this is for student athletes that have gone either Division III, Division II, or Division I. Make sure if you're wanting to transfer, once you get to your school and you spend 1 academic year there, understand the transfer rules, options, and potential consequences before choosing to transfer. Check with the compliance office at the NCAA school you want to attend. And again, we have resources for you guys. We have a guide for the 2-year transfers and a guide for the 4-year transfers. And for more information, I would encourage you to go to on.ncaa.com/transfer. Awesome. And I'm going to kick it back over to Amber as she is going to close us down. Amber?
Thank you, Jansen. And how is everyone doing? I know we threw a lot of information at you, but that's okay, because remember, if you registered for this webinar, you will be getting an email of a recording of the webinar and of a PDF of all the slides, so you can go through and click resources. So we are going to take a few questions here. So Ivory and Jansen, get ready, take some water breaks. And of course, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function and ask us those in the chat. Even if we can't get to your questions live, we do have staff standing by to answer them via chat right here, right now. So on this slide, we have resources. Here, there's a QR code. So if you have your phone sitting out next to you, go ahead and give this a scan. What this QR code is going to do is it is going to save the Eligibility Center customer service phone number directly in your phone, so that if you ever have any questions, you have our number right there for you. And then on the resources side of things, one that I really like to highlight is our most comprehensive resource for student athletes. That is the Guide for the College-Bound Student Athlete. I know I use this guide a ton when you and your family ask the NCAA Eligibility Center questions on social media. So if you have a question, most likely the answer is going to be in this guide. But if you're looking for something a little more brief, something just to give you an overview, kind of like how we did today, the initial eligibility flyer is going to be that one sheet that you can just hand to your family and just go over everything as an overview. So now let's take a few questions. First question here, Jansen, I'm going to come to you for this one. Could you review the registration fees for a certification account?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Domestic students, it's going to be $100. International students, it is going to be $160.
Thank you. Yes, and that's for that academic and amateurism certification account on that one. Jansen, coming back to you, you mentioned NCAA ID. Where do I find that?
Yeah, you're going to log into your NCAA Eligibility Center account at eligibilitycenter.org, and your NCAA ID is in the top right-hand corner just below your name.
Thank you. Ivory, let's come to you for a few questions here. First one is, how do I get on a school's IRL?
That's a great question, because this is something that's done behind the scenes that student athletes don't get access to. But the only way to end up on an institutional request list, or IRL, is to have the college coach request your status from their athletic department. So you do have to be getting actively recruited by this coach for that request to happen or occur. So then the athletic department then submits your name, your NCAA ID number, along with other student athletes they may be interested in. or recruiting. And then this means that you do need to be registered with the NCAA Eligibility Center. So if you are not and you know you're getting communication from these college coaches, making sure you log on to eligibilitycenter.org and get registered and complete the necessary steps to get an NCAA ID number before you can be placed on that IRL.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one that I see a lot of student athletes will put in their X or their Instagram bios. That is the number that we were talking about. Ivory, coming back to you for this one, when do I need a certification account?
So as we talked about earlier, students can register with a free profile page account as early as middle school, so 7th or 8th grade. And then we want you to transition to the certification account once you are being actively recruited or once you are deciding that you want to go to a Division I or Division II school to compete in your sport or sports. Remember that your GPA starts in 9th grade. So once Division I or II colleges begin reaching out, college coaches begin reaching out, you can transition your free profile page account into a certification account at any time.
Thank you, Ivory. And this next question, I'm going to assume this is a domestic student athlete. We do have another webinar if you are an international student athlete coming up. That is going to be on November 21st. So keep that in mind, and I'll throw that link in the chat in case you are an international student. But Ivory, this question, I'm going to go D3. Do I need to register?
So registering with the NCAA Eligibility Center is not required for playing at a D3 college or university for student athletes who are domestic, meaning that they completed all 4 years of high school and competed within the United States. But we are still encouraging you to register with that free profile page account because you'll receive regular communication from the Eligibility Center about a number of different topics that will help you on your journey to becoming a collegiate student athlete.
Thank you, Ivory. Jansen, I'm coming to you next with this question. How do I get approved for a fee waiver? Who can get a fee waiver? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. We never want money to prevent you from competing at the next level. And so if you are unable to pay the registration fee for the NCAA Eligibility Center, there is an option in the payment section of your Eligibility Center account. And that will indicate that you are eligible to receive a fee waiver. And examples of those students that receive it either get a free or reduced ACT, or they are eligible for free or reduced lunch at their school.
Yeah, SAT, ACT is kind of the best way to determine that. But we do have more free fee waiver criteria. We'll throw that in the chat too for them. Next slide here, I'm going to talk about social media. So if you've, again, got your phone out, scan these QR codes, give us a follow. The social channel that I like to highlight here is our YouTube because it is our newest platform. So if you have questions or if you're confused on which account type you need or how to request final amateurism, use our resources. Just watch our short YouTube videos and those will walk you through the process. And I know we're coming tight on time, but I want to answer as many questions as we can. So if you can stay with us, please do so. If not, we fully understand and want to respect your time, but I'm going to go through lightning round here and answer as many as we can. So Ivory, this question is, are the ACT and SAT required for all students this year?
The NCAA does not require test scores, so student athletes are not required to submit those test scores to the NCAA Eligibility Center, but we do want you to check with the NCAA school that you're wanting to compete for or attend to determine if they require those test scores for admission purposes, class placement purposes, or even scholarship purposes.
Thank you. Ivory, sticking with you. Can I upload my son's transcript to his Eligibility Center account?
Well, students will need their high school counselors to upload their high school transcripts to their accounts. And so again, student athletes making sure that you know who your school counselor is and communicating with them if you do have that certification account to have them upload your high school transcripts.
Ivory, staying with you again. This one is, I changed high schools. Do you only need one transcript from my current high school or do you need both?
The Eligibility Center will need transcripts from every high school that you attended. So if you did transfer, ask your counselor at each school that you have attended to upload your transcript into your Eligibility Center account.
Thank you, Ivory. And Jansen, I'm going to come to you for this next question here. This one says, do I have to be certified to go on a D1 official visit?
You do not have to be certified, but you do have to have that certification account that we've talked about in the previous slides to go on that Division I official visit.
Thank you. Jansen, sticking to you with this next one. Can you explain what a dead period is?
Yeah, great question. A college coach may not have any face-to-face contact with the student athlete or the student athlete's family on or off the college campus. However, the coach may call or write to the student athlete or their family.
Thank you. And I'll take one more, Ivory, coming to you for this one. What if my college coach leaves after I sign for athletics aid?
That's a really good question. So if the college coach resigns or leaves prior to the student athlete's full-time enrollment to that NCAA college or university before they practice or compete, the student athlete can request a release and the school will have to grant that release.
Thank you, Ivory. Thank you, Jansen. And thank all of you for joining us today. Huge shout out to NCAA President Charlie Baker for stopping by. As we mentioned before, we will email a link of today's webinar to everyone who registered in the coming days. So if you have teammates that you think would benefit from hearing this information, you can send them the link so they can watch as well. Again, my name is Amber Viles. On behalf of myself, Ivory Long, and Jansen Raymond, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to support you and your family as things change and questions arise. Thank you and be safe.